I'll just say, well, you know, I just have this little business that I started, and you guys have all these great things going on, and, you know, I'm here because I want to learn from you. And that started the conversation. So I'll give you another example. This friend of mine was telling me this story the other day, and I would never, she's a public speaker, a professional speaker, and has written a couple of books. And she said that at one time she was a vice president of human resources for a big company. And so everybody would come to her, you know, and ask for her advice. And so when she left that job to start her consulting business, she had to go out and learn the network. So she said she went to this chamber meeting one day, and she was just totally out of her element and didn't know what to do or what to say. And so she was standing by herself over by, I guess, a group of people that were talking over here. And this woman comes up to her and says to her, "You look like you don't know what you're supposed to be doing here. Can I help you?" And really sort of became her mentor in the networking area. So when if you're you know, a good networker and you feel like you're in a group and you see somebody standing over there by themselves, again, you know, help out, because we all know that there are people that feel uncomfortable at times. And then you just have to get over your feelings of inadequacy, quite honestly. You just do.
I was going to mention that for those of you who say, well, you know, how can I impose myself, or, you know, how can I get into a group? I think sometimes the buddy system is really helpful.
The wingman.
The wingman, exactly, the wing woman. Sometimes if you have... already women's conference here. Sometimes that helps a little bit. And don't, you know, the two of you just go and talk in the corner like Valerie was mentioning. I think it's very easy sometimes to just kind of, you're not going to be as uncomfortable because you have someone standing next to you. But also, if there's two, it's easier to approach, you know, a group, you know, in a pair, be comfortable, and then interject in the conversation that way.
That is great, because there's a handout that you're going to get at the end of this. It's networking tips for introverts. And that's one of the items on there, is to bring a friend with you. So you don't have to carry the conversation yourself necessarily until you go.
You have a question?
Yeah, I have two questions. So this is kind of on the other side. When you meet all these people at networking events, what are you supposed to do with that information? Because over, like, you know, especially like with Accenture, we have so many network events, and we meet so many people, and you get so many cards, and you're like, well, you know, what am I supposed to do with this? And can I contact someone after, you know, a year if I haven't talked to them?
So we talk about reading. You know, once you go, and this goes back to my trade show days. I used to work with a marketing manager for a trade show company. At a trade show, just like you do when you go to a networking event, you collect business cards. Well, hopefully you've had some kind of substantive conversation and made notes or have some idea of what you said. For example, when I met Tommy over here, I'll trade business cards with you. It's like I always say, the three questions. The first question is, hi, how are you? The second question is, who are you and what do you do? And the third thing is, are you on LinkedIn? We'll get to that. But the point is that you're going to collect that data somehow. You're going to learn something about that person. At the end of the evening or the end of the day, like my marketing manager at the trade show, at the end of the day, we'd sit out on the carpet in the middle of the booth and we'd go, okay, here are leads that we have to contact right now. These people are important. They either want to buy a product, I need to know them, or they're going to take me someplace. I need to contact. That's an A. B is, well, you know, I'll put them in the database. I'll keep up with them. Well, you're going to keep up with everybody, but I'm going to keep up with them somehow. The third one, well, we used to call them C leads, and they usually go in a drawer, and we try to figure out what to do with it, because they were somebody who were kind of peripheral to what we do. And we have people like that, and it's not to say we're trying to classify people, but we are. You're weeding. You're choosing how you're going to interact with those people. But to your point, can you call them a year from now? If you've been keeping some kind of regular interaction with them, or you have a reason to call them, you got to remember, if you traded business cards, the optimal word there is trade. They have your business card. They're probably in your database. The secret is, how do you follow up? Following up and following through is a really important aspect of all this. It's one thing to go and collect business cards. I had a friend who went to a networking event with her boss, and he was this hard-charging business owner, and he comes out of this meeting. At the end, he throws down, and they met at a coffee shop afterwards, and he throws all, he says, here, I've got 50 cards. Look at this. Michelle pulls out 5. He goes, you only have 5 cards. She goes, I can tell you something about all 5 of these people. How many can you tell me? She picked up one of his cards. Can you tell me something? No, I have a card. understand what you're doing when you go in. By the time you get to asking somebody for a business card in a networking situation, most of the time there's some compelling reason why you want to talk to them. You're not just collecting. We're not making ornaments for the Christmas tree. This is we're trying to collect data. And those of you who are analysts and financial types, it's data. Data is important. But all the planning and data collection in the world doesn't do anything, is worthless without action. So to your point is I'm going to collect this. There's some compelling reason why I met this person. You went to that meeting. You chose to go to that networking event for a reason. You interacted with those people for a reason. You picked that particular person out or persons out. Now you're going to do something with that data. You're going to connect with them. They might be an attorney that you need to consult with. They might be somebody who's in a company that maybe you want to eventually migrate your career to. There's other reasons why you do that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does. And I've kind of gotten to the trick of, since I get so many business cards, right, I know it's on the back. So
Well,
I might just look at the back and I know where I met them, what we talked about.
Exactly.
And I guess my other question was, so, I mean, I'm an analyst, and so I meet people sometimes once, and I think, oh, this would be a great person to be a mentor. So, I guess, at what point do you ask somebody to be a mentor, and do you need to use that, I guess, that designated word mentor, or can you just contact them?
What is it that you want them to mentor you about? I mean, is it for career? Is it for a particular position that you're taking in your company?
Let's say career, just like
Okay. Well, I've had people that I've met at professional associations that ask me to be their mentor. And for me, I ask them, what is it that you would like for me to do? Because if it's just giving you advice or talking to you about an issue, I'm happy to do that. I can't meet with someone necessarily on a regular basis for hours and hours, but I can certainly talk to them on the phone or exchange emails with them or invite them to something where I feel like they need the information, wherever this organization is. So I mentor a lot of people, and generally speaking, what happens is when they ask me, I want to find out what they want. How can I help them? And if I feel like I can help them, then I'll say, well, let's have a conversation, either on the phone, come over for a cup of coffee, whatever, and help them with whatever it is that they need help with. So at some point, if you have to know what you want from them, and you have to ask them specifically, can you help me? Would you mind helping me with, some career advice? I'm thinking about doing such and such long term. Could you talk with me about that? And lots of people are willing to help in that regard. It's just that if you're, it just really depends on the time constraints and really the issue that you have. If I can be helpful, and sometimes maybe I can't be helpful. I had a young man one time that wanted to get into, I was on the SMU Associate Board, and so this young man, I think it was a bank he wanted to start. I can't really remember, it's been a long time ago, but he wanted to start some kind of business. Well, I could not, there was no way for me to help him. I don't know, I've been on the boards of banks, I've been an organizer of a bank, but I don't know how to help him start this bank from scratch. So, I talked to him about my experience starting a bank, and then I said, let me put you in touch with somebody else. And I put him in touch with some other people that could help him, but I wasn't going to be able to help him after a certain point in time. So that's another good way to start a conversation with someone, in that if they can't help you, maybe they can refer you to someone who could. So that would be don't be afraid to ask someone to help you with an issue. When you say mentor, sometimes people think that, you're going to be attached to this person for a long period of time and a lot of hours, and that's probably not going to happen. So just be very specific and ask for a particular thing, and I think you'll be able to get people that will help you.
Well, there's another important component to what you just said, part of that conversation. It's one thing to ask. Many times at the end of a conversation, I'll say, well, thank you. I always say thank you. Thank you. What can I do in return for you? because that's the value of a network, is the interchange and the exchange. Valerie said one thing, she says, I had no idea how I was going to help this guy, but you know, I know a banker at Sterling Bank or one of these other banks that we know. I don't know if they exist anymore.
No, they got bought.
See, so you know somebody, oh, there's probably some valuable consultants out now. The point is that it's somewhere in Valerie's network. The thing is that if I'm standing talking to you and I want to meet you and you're part of my network, you're part of my network, but the people who are part of your network are now part of my network and just as important. That's the way to think about it. So for example, for the young man who was the banker, see, Valerie, I want to start a bank, I don't know where to begin. And her answer probably was something like, well, I'm not really sure either, but I know someone who knows about business planning and has an expertise in that, who might get you started in the right direction. Would you like to meet Tom? Well, he goes to Tom, and Tom might take him to John, who is a person that knows about acquisitions and things. And so the trail begins. Again, let's go back to that. Patience and persistence and timing. Well, you go back to timing and chemistry too, because the mentor thing, you have to have some chemistry with that person, and then the timing has to be right. And those two things have to align. But it's all about how can I help this person? It's almost a barter, really, when you think about it, because you're really trading information, but you're also helping in return. This is about giving things away. That's okay.
Well, I want you to talk about business cards, because you have a great take on business cards. Does everybody have a business card?
Do you all have business cards? How many of you have business cards with you today? I want to see every hand up.
Oh,
Every single hand.
Ah,
I see. Yes, yes, it did. On my list of 10 you saw there.
It's okay. You can get them tomorrow or Monday.
I have, this is what Valerie's talking about, is I've traded business cards with people everywhere. When my kids were young and playing sports, I'd trade business cards with another parent in the stands. I've been at black tie events and have to have a business card with me when I met somebody. I've traded business cards with businessmen in cabs in Mexico that I was sharing a ride with. I've traded business cards on airplanes. I've traded business cards poolside. Wait a minute, you took cards poolside, aren't you supposed to be relaxing? Well, they're always with me. It's part of it. It is the one piece of printed material. I have friends who are printers, and printers are always bemoaning the fact that, oh, the printed word is going away, we're all going electronic, people are using PDFs, I don't see brochures anymore. Have you noticed the business card has not gone away? In fact, they're getting more complex, right? Pictures, not just, and there's a whole formula about how you use them, but business cards, in fact, before I lose the thought, one of the things we talked about is while you're talking to somebody at a networking event, say, do you mind if I take a note or two? And no, you ask permission and then just take a note on the back of their business card, and then you haven't forgotten them. But always have business cards at the ready. It is a very important part of how to connect with people.
And for those of you that are looking for jobs, or maybe looking for jobs in the future, you're not unemployed any longer. You're in transition. That's the term. Everybody's in transition. And you have to have a business card if you're in transition. So you put your name on it. You put, if you were a pharmacist, if you were an attorney, if you were whatever you were, you put something there under that. You put your cell phone. You put your email.
Yeah, that
email. Put your email on there, and you have a business card. A lot of people put their pictures, the same picture on their business card as on their LinkedIn site, as on their Facebook site. And I think that's, to me, I like that. I think that's a good idea, because that way, if sometimes some of us are better at remembering faces than we are with names. And so all I have to say about that is that make sure you get a professional picture. I've seen some of these Facebook shots. I had an employee who had her LinkedIn picture was a picture of her in a strapless evening gown. You couldn't see the strapless part. She didn't have any clothes on. Off of there. Terrible. We're going to think we're running a call girl. Maybe it brought us more business. I don't know. I think business cards are really
well,
critical.
But in all seriousness, though, that's kind of a nice segue to top of mind. This is all about being top of mind. Those of you that understand or have some connection to marketing or sales know that you want to be at the top of mind when you're I always do this. Top of mind. And so I got to remember top of mind. That's where you want to be. You want to be right there. And so when years ago I worked for a company, and my boss, this is back when we used printed brochures, and he'd say, take a brochure with you, meet them, talk to them. We're going to hope that they put that brochure in the drawer, and when they have our need, they'll remember us. Well, Things have sped up a little bit and gotten a little bit more electronic, more digital. The point is now you need to control that digital footprint, and you need to be in you need to be in their viewfinder. You need to be in their viewfinder that much more often and that much more clearly. Valerie said something really important there, that consistent image. In marketing, we always teach our clients that it's about a consistent image. So yeah, it's simple. First of all, tell the truth. Your LinkedIn profile should be truthful, should be honest, it should have that, and any printed resume you have and any other story about you should be the same. From LinkedIn to Facebook to Twitter, the photos should be the same. Claim your digital footprint. We could go on for hours, and I'm sure someplace else in this event and with these other organizations you'll learn something. We'll talk about social media, we'll touch on social media in that it is a tool. It is the arrow in the quiver that helps you. It's one more thing. Because truthfully, this is about face-to-face. Those are tools that will get you face-to-face. Be consistent from platform to platform. Tell the same story. Use the same title. Use the same contact information.
Let me talk a little bit about weak ties and strong ties.
Yes, please.
I've heard people talk about networking who say, you only want certain people in your network, and you want those that you have strong ties with. I don't believe that at all, and most people agree with me in that the larger your network, the more career capital you will have. You will not be best friends with 500 people just one, but they will know you. They will, if you pick up the phone and call them or you email them, they're more likely to call you back or email you back than if you've never met them before. So we call those weak ties and strong ties, and sometimes the weak ties can be more helpful to you in your career than the strong ties. So cultivate, and like Paul said, you can stay in touch with people really easily over LinkedIn and Facebook. LinkedIn more for business, Facebook I guess more for personal. But it's easy to keep in touch with people these days. When I started my career, there was none of that. And so we had to pick up the phone. We had to actually talk to somebody.
Well, you still want to do that.
You still want to do that.
You still want to do that.
You're right, you're right. But the point is that you can communicate what you're up to, what you're doing to a whole lot more people these days through LinkedIn. So weak ties are really, really critical. So you say, you've got all these business cards. Well, they're weak ties probably. I mean, if you've met them and you actually know maybe a little tiny bit about them, they can be in your network, but they are your weak ties. Also, we have passive, active, and proactive networking. Now, if you come to this meeting and your only role here is to come and listen and participate by being in the audience, that's passive networking. In that you're here, you're going to meet people on either side of you, you're going to meet people maybe at lunch and so on. So you're meeting people, but you're not doing much else to create your network. And then you have active. Active might be that you were in charge of the breakfast, or you were in charge of registration. So in that role, you're meeting more people, you're having a more active role in networking. And then proactive is you're an officer. You're going to be standing up in front of people. People are going to know you. You're not necessarily going to know all of them that well. So proactive, you can't be proactive in every organization, obviously. You've got a career, too. Some of you have children and families, so you can't always be proactive in every group. But you're going to get the most out of your networking, or you can. You can possibly get the most out of your networking, the most value out of your branding yourself through being proactive. So you have to pick and choose very carefully. The other thing I want to say is that how many of you, your companies pay for you to come to this today? Did everybody's company pay? Okay. So how many of you paid your own way? Okay.
That's great too.
Very good. I feel like, some companies will not pay for you to do anything, especially in this kind of economy where companies are cutting back on just about everything. But please do not let that deter you. I interviewed someone not too long ago in sales, right? And in sales you have to network and you have to meet people. And I said, well, how did you network at this company you were at? And the person said, well, I didn't. And I said, well, why didn't you? Because the company wouldn't pay for it. And I went, oh my God, that person X You know, I'm not gonna hire somebody that has that attitude. I mean, this is your career, this person's career, you know, and the companies can't pay for everything these days. So, you know, the groups, I encourage everybody, pay for it yourself. It's your career. I remember when I started my career on the business division faculty at El Centro College. And of course, the community college district doesn't ever have any money for any of that kind of stuff. And so I always paid my way to everything because it was about me at that time. You know, I wanted the experience, I wanted to learn, I wanted the opportunity. And if they weren't going to pay for it, I was going to pay for it myself. So, you know, don't ever tell anybody you're not going to network because your company won't pay for it. Because people will look at you like, oh my gosh, you know, if the company won't do this and this for me, then what? You know, I'm not responsible for my own career. So the other thing is that I know some of you have obligations, you have children, and you know it's hard for you to make night meetings, and you have a boss maybe that wants you to be at your desk 40 hours a week and doesn't want you to do anything. So you really need to make the case for yourself with your company how valuable it is to the company as well as to yourself to allow you to at least go to these things. And then of course on networking in the evening or with children, you know, children have their own networks. And, you know, you have the soccer thing, and you have this, and you have that, and you meet parents. Well, that's networking too. So it's not like you can, one precludes the other. You can combine all of that together, and also your interest. If you're interested in art, if you're interested in music, there's plenty of groups around the things that you enjoy other than business, where you still make business contacts. So all of it together, you know, is you need to look at and decide how you're going to network and where you're going to network and where you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
Well, and that's a good point, Valerie, is that what she just said is you have a map of what your network is, whether it's your children's interests, there are other parents. Those parents are companies, belong to work for companies or have their own companies. There are people like you. That's a network. There's your professional network of the people that have a similar career to you, work in the same field as you work for other companies. And then there's people that you work with, the people who sit next to you at the desk, in the cubicle next to you. These are all part of your network. That's an incredible piece of this, to remember. We're going to talk about those networks, and the segue here is to associations, and that connections beget connections beget connections. And I'll tell a story here. Again, we'll go back to this Chamber of Commerce that we're having, so belong to. It's interesting. Well, first of all, one story is you never know who you're sitting next to. Don't discount anybody. I went to a leads group, for a long time. In fact, I still belong to this leads group, go twice a month. And I always say, well, I'm sitting with the dog walkers and the financial planners and the house painters. Well, I sat next to Gregory, the house painter, for quite a few months, actually, and I got to know him over the first few months. And at first I thought, what does a house painter have to do with marketing? Why do I need to know this? Well, I got to talk to him. Well, first of all, I found out he was Dutch, had this fabulous accent, he was a great guy. Found out that he had been in a number of businesses. He lived in Europe and South Africa and other places. Then I found out that his wife used to have a large account with Chanel in Europe, worked for one of the largest advertising agencies in Europe. Could I meet Natalie? So you don't know who you're sitting next to. And so don't discount, because, you know, when we talk about the dog walker, my friend Sharon actually run 4 or 5 different businesses. She's a lot like Valerie in terms of being a serial entrepreneur. The dog care business just happens to be her latest business, is one of several that she has. So don't discount people. They have businesses, they run things that way. Contacts beget business. The example, again, at this same chamber, I made contacts with people that I turned into clients, and then since then, some of those clients I've served actually with other chamber members who, for just recently, we had an architect who needed to rebrand his company, and I actually hired a graphic designer who I'd met at the chamber, who also knew this architect, and I hired a writer to help with a workshop that we were helping develop for this man. So those are people that are all around. Are we doing on time? Okay.
Yes, questions.
So I think maybe you want to, is there anything we need to summarize with here, Valerie?
Well, let me make one other comment. I host a group at my office that I started about 2 years ago called C-Suite. And it's for executive level women in transition. And these are women who have been with a company, usually a big company, for 15 or 20 years, and now they're out on the street without a job, and they have no network at all. They have no LinkedIn site, they have no Facebook site, they have no business, well, they have a business card, but it's from the previous company. Anyway, you know, as you age, as you get older, you know, your networks become even more critical to your career. Because in this day and age, you are likely to be laid off at some point. And if you have no network, it will be much, much harder for you to find that next opportunity. So what we do at C-Suite is we have speakers to come in about, I mean, these women haven't even applied for a job in 2 years. So they don't even know how to do a really good resume or send out a really good cover letter or do a LinkedIn site or whatever. And so you don't want to ever put yourself in that position. So start now when you're young, and by the time you get to be my age, you'll have a fabulous network that you can count on for all kinds of things. Not only your career, but advice and counsel and fun things too.
And young is a relative term. You can start at any time. Your network exists. You just need to know where it is and identify it and keep track of it. It's an incredibly important part of your career development. We were talking earlier about you are a corporation of one. You might work for Accenture or JCPenney or HP or whomever. The point is that you are a commodity of one, a business of one. And they hired you for what you know and who you know. And those are things to important. Now, understand you do have talent. And it is needed and it's necessary and wanted. But so is your network. And your network is a valuable commodity. Do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you go to find these networking groups?
Oh my gosh. Google networking groups. You will have pages of things. And then the morning news has has a whole list.
It's a calendar.
Yeah, has a calendar. There are groups like BNI. Do any of you know BNI?
Business Networking International. They have chapters.
Yeah.
Kind of a membership thing. It's a way to be involved. Yes, ma'am.
But anyway, there's just those for networking, and there's those that are geared to different.
Well, and the Dallas Business Journal as well has a
Yeah.
calendar. Excuse me.
To address her comment about how do you contact these, find out about these, I'm a member of Toastmasters, and that's a table I have out there.
Very good.
A lot of statements that you've made today, Toastmasters helps to get rid of those ahs and ers, pregnant pauses. It is also a networking organization with people from all phases of life, and that you can get to know them and then benefit from the relationship with them. At the same time, while you work on that issue of fear, of standing up in front of the group like they stood and presented, some of you have fear of standing up there and presenting. Some have not the confidence to organize on how to organize your thoughts, to give a beginning, the middle, and end of your presentation. Also, the issue about starting a conversation in the elevator, starting the conversation when I don't know who it is that I'm talking to. The program that Toastmasters has helps to build that confidence so that you can start that conversation and be confident within yourself about taking that step forward. I'm at the table out there.
Oh, great. Thank you. She actually expanded on her elevator speech. Good work. Fabulous.
And Toastmasters is a fabulous
Fabulous.
organization.
I'm a member of Toastmasters for many years.
Oh, really?
And I have been working since I got out of college, 30 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I think it works. 1996, I lost my job that day, Friday, for Mother's Day, and then I called my friend, the president of the Industrial Engineers Chapter in New York. I said, George, I lost my job. I'm not going to the karaoke tonight. Well, no, you have to go. Bring 10 resumes. And you need to go because my husband is an engineer. No, you need to go. You need to go. And I had been working for this company for 5 years, doing saving money, and then I got laid off. And I went, I brought the resumes. That was Friday. And we enjoyed, we were drinking karaoke, singing. And then on Monday, I got 5 calls. 5 interviews. From 35,000, I went to 55,000, and I didn't know which offer to take.